Welcome to Body by Design. I'm your host, Blue Driver, a women's strength training and metabolism coach. I went from years suffering hormone imbalances, looking soft and bloated, to symptom-free and building muscle for a toned athletic physique. Since then, I've made it my mission to empower women to take control of their own health, hormones and body composition. So grab a cup of coffee and let's build your body by design. Hello and welcome back to the Body by Design podcast. I'm Lou Driver, your host today. And before we go any further, I'd love it if you just quickly press pause, drop down below whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and just hit that follow or subscribe button. And you'll never miss another podcast. But also the algorithm will take this podcast to more 40 plus women just like you training for a lean, strong body. Now, in today's episode, I want to talk about the 40 plus women already in the gym training and not understanding why their body isn't changing. But when you actually nail what you're doing, how long will it take to change your body? And unfortunately, I think the fitness industry has got everyone so obsessed with how to diet, 8-week, 12-week shred phases, all these quick fixes out there so coaches can post up, photos of you looking a little bit slimmer and go, look what they did. That's not actually leading to true muscle gains that change your shape. So if you actually want to have a muscular look like you lift, you need more muscle. And the fitness industry is busy selling deficits and 8-week shreds. So there is this misconception of how long it actually takes to build a body that you love and that looks muscular and lean. When a woman is talking about, I want to look muscular and lean, I want to set some numbers here that in your mind you can actually understand and translate to what is going to actually show results. In the early stages of building your body, there are minimum strength numbers that are going to show that you have actual muscle when you lose the body fat. And there's body fat percentage numbers where that muscle is likely to show. So sub 20% is usually where someone who has been lifting for a few years and has, the foundational strength markers, sub 20%, so 15 to 18%. Now that's not actually easy to get to and easy to maintain. That is early stages. The further you progress through your training career, so to speak, the more muscle you get, the more body fat you can carry because the muscle shows more because it's simply bigger. So as you progress from there, you could sit at 20% quite comfortably and still like you have a shaped body, but you're talking about 5 years. Somewhere around there of really hard training to still have that shape and a lot of muscle and a lot of strength to be 20% fat or more and still show that lean muscular look. So let's talk about you where you are because you're in the gym every day. You're feeling like you're training hard and you've just got that soft, skinny look. It's shapeless and it doesn't reflect what you feel like you're putting in. So sub 20% body fat is probably what you're aiming for. Now, maybe when you start the journey and you actually start building muscle and get strong, I find that becomes less important for women. But let's just set the expectation here because usually you've got to be a lot stronger and a lot less body fat than what you realize to get that look that you want. So I want this to be about setting the expectation. Though I don't want you to be disillusioned when you go, oh my God, I'm nowhere near that. I can't do that. You absolutely can. But what it does is it shifts you from spinning your wheels right here, right now to, okay, now I've actually got a clear goal because saying that you want to be lean and you want to look like you lift is all very well, but you don't have a clear, measurable goal of where you want to go. So you're talking sub 20% fat and you're lifting strength markers. These are, I'm just going to pick like big lifts that women can have. And that's roughly where they need to be before you're going to ever look like you lift. Anything under that, you're just not going to have the muscle to look like you lift, even if you got down to 15% body fat. You would likely not get down to that 15% body fat because the more muscle you have, the easier it is to get lean, all right? So it's actually unrealistic that you would actually get down to 15% body fat. But if you did and you didn't have these baseline strength markers, you still wouldn't look like you lift. You would just be a smaller version of what you are now, shapeless and skinny fat. So we're talking sub 20% body fat, and your strength markers would be a deadlift, 1 rep max of double your body weight. So let's say you want to be, most women around the 60 kilo mark, and, this is going to change with your height, obviously. But most women, if we averaged it out, most women at about 60 kilos with these strength markers could be at 20% or less body fat and look like they lift. So I am personally 60 kilos and I'm around the 16% body fat at the moment. See, muscles, right? Can see them. See, shoulders, got that? So if you're on YouTube and you're looking, or if you've got your Spotify playing with the video on, there you go, you can see some muscle. All right. So I am around the 60 kilos and I'm around the 16% body fat. That is reality. Now, strength markers. So we want double your body weight. So if we take 60 kilos, you want a 1 rep max of at least 120 kilos. That is your first achievement that you want to get to. We actually do want to push that a little bit more. I think that women really should be getting to, you should be able to lift 120 kilo for reps. But at this point, we would be saying a 1 rep max of 120. So say 100 kilo deadlift for 7 reps would be around 120 kilo lift. So deadlift of double your body weight. You want a squat of around 1.3 to 1.5 of your body weight. So you're talking at around, if we're 60 kilos and we're talking 1.3, you're probably talking about a 70, 80 kilo squat. And then if we spoke about a bench, we want about your body weight. So getting close to the 60 kilo mark. And again, this is 1 rep max markers that I'm talking about. So if you don't know about 1 rep max, I have done a podcast on it. And it's really important that you learn about 1 rep max because that's where you can really get true progression and understand what you're doing and understand how to progressively overload you. So it's really important to understand 1 rep max. If you want a podcast on that, I have done it. Either have a scroll through or comment in my DMs on Instagram at strengthstraining.nutritionist and I can send it to you. But your 1 rep max is double your body weight in a deadlift, about 1.3 to 1.5 in a squat, and around your body weight in a bench. Now, you might go, but I don't bench. There's a little bit of give and take in that. That is just, the 3 big lifts and an idea of where to go. You might do an RDL at 1.5 kilo for 6 reps. So 1.5 your body weight for 6 reps. So an RDL is going to be a little bit less than a deadlift. Now, they are the strength numbers that you're heading for and that sub 20% body fat. So now you actually understand what it takes to have that kind of a look, all right? Then you need to understand where you are now. And this is the part that determines how long it's going to take to get there, all right? So it's always about your starting point. What is your health markers like? We always start with the foundations because if you have gut issues, sleep issues, energy issues, hormonal issues, particularly being in perimenopause and menopause, it's not all about HRT. If you've got the foundation, most of your perimenopause symptoms will actually sort themselves out. And if you gain some muscle is actually a great for hormone health. So it depends where your starting point is. I have some ladies that have come in and they have been at right nest with autoimmune issues, all sorts. So we run the bloods, do the gut maps, run some protocols, and it takes them 12 months. In the meantime, they're learning the skill of lifting, which is amazing, but deficits and getting body fat down and everything are totally off the cards. Their body is just not healthy enough and they don't have a metabolic rate that is going to withstand or be resilient enough to diet. So they're not going to get to the body that they want. They have to lay that foundation first. Also, how long have you been lifting? What is your skill of lifting? These all have impact on how far down the track you already are to get to where you want to go. For the sake of today's podcast, let's assume that you're in the gym, you're comfortable in the gym, and you do lift, but you're not near those markers. Maybe you're doing 3 sets of 10 and you don't really feel progress, but they're the sorts of markers that you're looking at being able to do. Another good one to look at for back strength, because lats and backs really shape a woman into that beautiful X shape and give them that hourglass shape. So a lat pull down, you want at least to be 50 kilos for reps. So there's another marker that you can be looking at. So how close are you to those markers? Now, the thing with this journey is you're going to need to understand that it's going to take time for it to actually show up in your body. And you need to learn to enjoy the journey. Once you get the body, you have to maintain it with lifting, and you have to maintain it with nourishment, and you have to maintain it with fueling timing still. Yes, you get to be a lot more balanced once you get to those strength markers and that body fat percentage. Like, I don't track unless I'm actually specifically trying to do something. I just now understand from years of tracking. I now understand what fuels my body, and I can feel it when I'm lacking something. So it just becomes a tool that I pull in and out sometimes. But you have to really dial in to get there, and you're not going to see instant results. So when you're building muscle, if you need to, like most women that come in, they've got to put on about 5 kilos of lean mass. That's the lean mass numbers that we're talking that would relate to the strength marker. So if I take someone who's in the gym, comfortable, moving weights, but hasn't really understood how to build that body, I would say most of those women need to add 4 to 5 kilos of lean mass to their frame before they're going to get the body that they want. So to add that, it's not going to happen overnight. Studies show that women in their 40s can only add in the most optimal environment. So think proper nourishment, proper fueling, great sleep, great energy, skill of lifting, progressive overload, where everything is optimal. You're looking at 0.5 kilo to 1 kilo at most, at absolute most. And I'd say it's closer to the 0.5 kilo mark for 40 plus women, because we do, whether we like it or not, we do add muscle at a slower rate the older we get. So you're not going to go, boom, I've just done a 6-week cycle of a training program, so where's my muscle? It's not going to happen like that for you, because it's a slow build. So this visible, undeniable shape change that you're chasing, the shoulders, the arms, the glutes that you're actually looking for, is going to take those small gains over time, 12, 18 months, 24 months, because it also depends on your journey. Remember, I was talking about an optimal environment, and this is where things like life, injury, stress all come into it and can slow the process down. So in the last 2.5 years, I have suffered through adrenal fatigue due to stress issues in my life. I've done a whole podcast on it. If you want it again, message me on Instagram. But there was a whole thing around my partner having cancer, child custody battles, for him to be able to have the rights to his children, and all these sorts of things that were going on. They're not stresses that we can remove from our life or control. If you hate your job and you're under stress all the time, change your fucking job. If you're not happy in your relationship and you're under stress all the time, either improve your relationship or leave. Like, there are things that you can actually do to change a lot of stress in your life. If you're overwhelmed with so many things, start saying no to things. But sometimes in life, we get things handed to us that we have no control over, and it's really hard to remove that stress. So I've been through 2.5 years of adrenal fatigue through emotional stress that we weren't able to avoid or remove. I then had a back injury and surgery, and then I had a shoulder injury. So I pretty much, up until probably about March this year, and we're now in August, I wasn't doing any muscle building, because that just kept hitting me. And it's really hard to build muscle in that time. In fact, I lost muscle. So life happens in this process. So even though in optimal conditions, you can put on 0.5 to 1 kilo of lean mass in a month, that is not reality. So we've got, yes, age is a little bit against us. It's not impossible. I don't want you to start going down the rabbit hole of, oh my God, I'm 40, I don't have estrogen, I can't build, because that's absolute bullshit. It really is. You don't need estrogen to build muscle. So you need to be thinking about the length of time this is really going to take. And you are honestly looking at 18 months to 2 years to build a body but you're not going to have that look immediately. It takes time. So we put stresses on the muscles, and the muscles get micro tears, and then we build them. So it's a slow build. The next thing to be thinking about would be the inputs to your body. And I touched briefly on it before about what's your starting point, what's your health markers like. Your body will only build muscle when it's in an optimal state. Okay, so stress actually raises cortisol. Cortisol actually is catabolic, literally catabolic, which means it will break down muscle. So if you are undernourished, it can raise cortisol. If you are underfueled, it can raise cortisol. If you are under a lot of emotional stress, it will raise cortisol. Now, cortisol isn't bad in the sense that we shouldn't have cortisol spikes. But in our modern world, where we're chronically putting our body under stress for anything from nourishment to emotional to physiological things going on, that the cortisol becomes chronically raised, and that's where it starts breaking down muscle. So that's going to work against you if you don't have those sorts of things under control. Your health, if your body is constantly trying to repair some sort of autoimmune or injury or something like that, the priority is going to go to there, not building extra tissue, because extra tissue is metabolically expensive to build it and to maintain it. So your body is never going to go about that optimal building rate of 0.5 to 1 kilo per month if you don't have the right inputs, nourishment, stress management in place. So you really have to build the foundations. And the quicker you can improve the foundations, the quicker you actually get into that state where your body will more happily and easily build that muscle. So after I came out of all that stress that I've just spoken about and my back injury and everything, since January this year, I wasn't back at my strength markers where I was previously, but January this year, everything was kind of all over and done with. I've been going really well with my rehab, and I was actually at, okay, I am now working to mechanical tension, my full capability. Do I have the strength I had before? No. So now I've got to build some more. But the build that I have done from January to August now has been phenomenal. I've got more now than what I had pre all of this, but it's taken a very long time because my life hasn't been ideal. And it's not life hasn't been ideal of things that I had control. I still made sure my nourishment was spot on. I still made sure my fuel timing was spot on through all of that. But emotional stress and injuries, there's just nothing you can do about it, and you just have to ride the wave. So life happens. Where is your body now? Lay those foundations so you can get a lot quicker into the muscle building. And, how well do you know tracking? If you want to specifically build muscle and lose body fat, you've got to be very specific about what you do, and tracking is one of them. And this is probably the biggest barrier I see women against, is like they don't want to track, or they feel like it's overwhelming. You need to just take a step back, breathe, understand that this is going to give you the data and the information that you need to nourish and build a body that you really want. And it's a skill. So when you were a teenager and you got to 17 or 16 and you had to learn how to drive, you weren't just handed the keys to a car and went, there you go, off you go, were you? You had to learn how to drive. And in the beginning, it felt overwhelming. The whole stay in the white lines, clutch, gears, indicator, curb, like all these things that you're thinking about, and it felt overwhelming. But as you practiced that skill, I bet now you can drive to the shops and not even remember your journey at all. So think about that. Tracking is a skill. So the quicker you can dedicate yourself to tracking and understanding the skill of tracking and what it can do for you will get you there faster. And the same goes with lifting. If you want to look like you lift, if you actually want to be able to move 100 kilos off the floor as a woman, you need the skill of execution. Yes, you need the muscle and the strength, but the only way to get the muscle and the strength is through the skill and execution of a movement. And if you don't understand how to train properly, if you've never had someone professionally show you form and intensity, true progressive overload, true muscular tension and mechanical failure, then you're actually not going to build the muscle. You'll never get that 100 kilos off the ground. It's not going to happen. So understand that these foundations need to be in place. Optimal health, execution of lifting and the skill of tracking your food and being able to do it fluently. All right. So they're things that you need to think about. And everyone is at a different stage. Some women come into me and they actually already know how to track. We just need to refine what they're doing, balance their meals out better, fuel around training better, maybe change some foods out to nourish them, but they've already got the skill of tracking. They just needed to refine what they had there. So that person is going to progress through a bit quicker than someone who's never tracked before at all, or someone that doesn't even know what protein, carbs, or fats are. Like, which foods are they? So where you're starting from is always going to determine how long it's going to take as well. So we need to keep that one in mind. When you actually start the skill of lifting, you also need to understand that if you haven't been getting results, it is likely you're not using true mechanical tension, you're not training to failure, and you're not using progressive overload. Now, whether that's because it's lack of skill or lack of confidence doesn't really matter. If you're in there hashing over the same weight at 3 sets of 10 and not actually building strength, then you actually have to learn how to lift. And when you start doing that, there is a central nervous system, a neurological phase that comes first. So your brain needs to actually learn how to trigger and fire your muscles properly to use full mechanical tension. And to do that, it needs to practice it. And that can take 4 to 8 weeks. When you've never really pushed yourself that far, it can take up to 8 weeks. That's 2 months. Listen to that. That's 2 months before your central nervous system, your neurological firing mechanisms are actually engaging your muscle. Now, it's going to feel great and you're actually going to feel like you're getting stronger because numbers are going up. But in that initial phase, that actually isn't using your true strength capacity of where you're currently at, because you're not using, it's this neurological phase that's adapting. It's not actually muscle hypertrophy. And once you've adapted neurologically, and your brain knows how to fire, as soon as you put your hands on that bar and you get into position, everything tightens up, the breathe and brace, and then you execute. Okay. That's not happening in that first 8 weeks. So there's a couple of months right there at your starting point. If you're not seeing change in your body, you're not lifting properly, that you've got to prime your neurological phase to come in. So already you're trying to learn the track of skill, that you're trying to learn the skill of tracking, learn the skill of lifting, and you're trying to have a neurological adaptation before we even get to hypertrophy. Now, I'm bringing this up because if you still have a soft looking body, that is exactly what's happening. If someone comes to me and has a soft looking body, but they say to me, yes, I can deadlift 100 kilos and show me a video, then they just have a body fat issue. And that is it. And they just need to learn the skill of tracking and do some dieting and train in a way that's going to maintain their muscle. But if you don't have those strength markers, you have that neurological adaptation phase to go through first as well. So that needs to be added onto your timeline. So you can easily see how this is starting to build up already in the reality of, how do I get that body? And it's going to take you 2 years. At 40 plus, I would say 2 years before you truly get to where you want to be. So it takes time to build that muscle. So we know that. It takes time to adapt before we even get to the muscle. Even if you were building muscle at, say you did 6 months and you built muscle and you built 3 kilos of muscle mass, you got half a kilo per month on there. You're still not quite there. That's 6 months plus your neurological adaptation phase, which is another 2 months. So we're already at 8 months and you're still not even at the markers, that lean mass marker that you actually really need. Then we go on to, dieting phases. They are going to be needed, and we need to spend more time building muscle than what we do dieting. But a dieting phase in itself, where we want to diet but also maintain the muscle mass that we've been working hard for, you want a moderate deficit for anywhere from, I'm going to sneeze. No, sorry about that. Now, where was I? Dieting phase. We don't want to be focusing on dieting all the time. We actually want to put more of a focus on building the muscle, but a dieting phase where you can still maintain your lean mass that you've been so desperately trying to build is going to take 12 to 16 weeks. So say we did 6 months of a build and then you did a dieting phase of 12 to 16 weeks. So you've got 6 months plus 4, there's 10, plus your neurological adaptation phase. There's 12 months already if life is going really, really well. And you're likely to need to do that twice before you get to those strength markers. You can see how this is all adding up and building up here. So this is where at 40, because, we've slowed down a little bit in the muscle building, we need to be really, really dialed in, but we also have to understand that we need to be dialed in for longer than a 12-week deficit phase. It is not just about a deficit. You need to be willing to push the boundaries, ignore the scale weight, ignore what the clothes feel like, and build for 6 months at least as well in your first round. Now, depending on where you're at, you might do a build for 12 months and then do dieting. Or you might be someone who responds really well to recomposition. There's not many that do, to be honest, but this is the sort of thing that you need to be looking at, and you're likely to need to go through these rounds and phases a couple of times before you meet those minimum markers. So you can see how it adds up really quite easily to that 18 months to 2 years to actually build a body that looks like it lifts. Okay. So muscle building is a lot slower than the actual fat loss phase. But when you put them all together, it takes a lot longer, and you just can't rush composition phases. We are capped at how much muscle we can grow, not just because you're 40. Yes, you're going to respond differently at 40 than when you were in your 20s. But the reality is it is still a slow process. Then on top of all of that, ideally, you've gone through all this, you've gone through one lot of a phase, let's say that's 12 months. But you can't expect to live 12 months of your life or 2 years of your life if you go through another round of that without life lifing on you. So when I mean life is lifing on you, you're going to go on holidays, all right? So maybe you're not lifting while you're on holidays. I'd love to think that you are at least getting 2 lifts a week in. Go and find the hotel gym or a gym close by and do an early morning and get it out the way when you're on holidays. But you've got holidays. You may have deaths and illness in your family, and that would be really tragic, but it slows things down. There may be, just trying to think of all the things that happen in life, illness, your own illness, colds, flus, like all these things slow us down. And if you take 2 weeks out of training because you got hit with influenza and it was really quite bad, and say you've been out of training for 2 weeks, it's going to take you another 2 weeks just to get back and ease in again. So there's a 4-week period where you probably didn't have any gains. So can you see where I'm saying, like, all of this has an impact on you? So under ideal conditions, you could probably get, and if you already knew how to track and you got onto all of that stuff quite quickly, you could probably have the body of your dreams in 12 to 18 months. But life happens, and we are 40 plus now, and it slows things down. So you need to dedicate 2 years to this process and learn to enjoy the process, because you don't get to the end of 2 years and go, well, I don't really like, eating optimal foods and heading to the gym 3-4 days a week. I don't like doing that and getting 10,000 steps. I don't like doing that anymore. So I've got the body of my dreams. I'm going to stop now. You need to keep doing that. You need to keep lifting, and you need to keep getting steps in and being active, and you need to keep nourishing your body. Does it come with more flexibility on the other side? Absolutely. I'm about to go on holidays. I'm going back to Perth to see my family, and I'll come back the same way. I know I will, because I go on holidays now and it's not an issue. And I'm not trying to build. My sister has, a setup in her garage at home. I'll just chuck in 2 full body day lifts just at the beginning of the day, just to keep things ticking over. I won't be building. I'm not trying to lose body fat. I just go, I maintain, and that's life. We'll have dinners out. I'll probably have a drink or 2 with my sister. So be it. Because I have that flexibility now. But when you're in the depths of it, you do need to be a little more specific. So I do have flexibility, but ultimately the foundations are still there. I'm still trying to get a lift in as much as I can. I'm still getting my 10,000 steps, and I'm still eating really well. I may go and have more treats than normal. I may eat out a little more regularly, but I've got this body that is resilient to all of that. My training may back down to only twice a week instead of 4 times a week when I go on holidays. Sometimes I don't train when I go on holidays, and it has no effect on me. So at the other side of 2 years, you don't give up what you're doing, but you do get more balance. So if you if you want to keep the body that you want and you're not going to give up what you're doing, why not just enjoy the fucking process as you go? Because it's going to take 2 years. Now, you will see small, slow changes as you go. Okay. And learning to flex in the mirror, find good lighting, put a self-tan on once in a while, helps the muscles pop. All those things help keep you encouraged. And I would say do that. But you need to fall in love with the lifestyle, because if it's going to take you 2 years to build it and then you have to keep doing most of it to maintain it, it has to be part of who you are. And this is who I am now. And that's why when I had adrenal fatigue, that's why when I had a back injury and I literally did not walk for 2 months, Dean had to carry me to bed every night. It was horrendous, but I never gave up. In my mind was, will I lift again? Because it's who I am now. I just fucking love the empowerment that lifting gives me. And I think if you just give yourself enough time to reconcile in your mind, this is a long process. Stop giving up after 12 weeks going, it doesn't work. Give yourself some time to actually start seeing some results, and you fall in love with the journey. The journey has been amazing, though the journey has been quite frustrating for me at times as well, because I have had life from me. Honestly, go listen to the podcast about dodgy doctors, cancer and all that with my partner, Dean. He had cancer twice. A doctor dodged him the first time, which is why he had complications from that surgery. He had the cancer reoccur because he didn't get it all the first time, never read the pathology results and just assumed he got it all and told us we were fine. So yeah, there was a lot that went on. So I have had life on me, but it is still who I am. And you need to own that identity so you can enjoy the journey. And when you enjoy the journey, the destination really isn't as important anymore. And the amount of times I have women that come in, Jo, who's recently worked with me, she's had an amazing transformation. And right now for her, she is in a season of life. Her daughter, unfortunately, has quite an aggressive breast cancer, and she is in the depths of supporting her. And she lives 2 hours away. So there's lots of driving backwards and forwards. And, life is lifing on her right now. But in that 6 months beforehand, when we started working together, she had such great results. And now she just goes, she can't keep the progression up at the moment. So all she's doing is going, now I just need to maintain myself. I'm not worrying about getting PBs in the gym, but I still go and I still execute and I still lift those weights. I'm never giving up my food and food prepping because it makes me function better. I can think better. I can handle stress better. The food prep allows me more time. Like, she has built all these solid foundations leading up to this, that when life has happened, it's just who she is now. And she knows that she gets so many benefits from it, that even though she's going through this extremely stressful time, she's able to maintain all these skills because it's life. It has to be life. You can't just let it go every time something happens. And when it becomes your life, the length of the journey to get to where you want to go really is irrelevant anymore. It really becomes irrelevant. And that probably sounds like a really far-fetched to you while you're struggling with your body right now. But if you learn this and you learn what your body responds to, and you learn how to adapt. And this is everything I teach all my women in my mentorship, because I want them to have freedom. So my mentorship is 6 months long. That doesn't mean that I'm going to get you to the body of your dreams in 6 months. But what we do is we set you up with the skills. So the skill of lifting properly, like an athlete, the skill of tracking your food, the skill of nourishing and fueling. So nourishment is one. So that is the nutrients that you're bringing into your body. And fueling is about timing around training and recovery, balance of meals. So you fuel your body better when your meals are balanced, and you balance your blood sugar, and your fuel and energy is better. So when you learn how to do those and what your body responds to, I know my body doesn't respond great to bread and pasta. I eat it occasionally, but I know my body, it's not optimal when I eat it. I know that when I'm under stress, that my strength in the gym goes and sleep goes. For other women, I see their hormones set off straight away. So everyone is different in what their body responds to. What we do in the mentorship is identify that through the data, through their constant and consistent execution of everything. And we collect that data and we analyze it against your own biofeedback. And in that 6 months, You learn all those skills. Now you can continue with coaching, which I have many women who stay with me for years. Then I have other women that go, I've got my skills now. Jo is one of them. Coaching for her right now because she just needs to maintain what she's doing while she gets through this next 6 months with her daughter going through chemo and everything. Life is too much. So thinking about progression and all that and being really dialed in is not for her right now. But what she got in the 6 months of being with me was the skills on knowing how to maintain it and what to pick up on the other side. That's where the true freedom is and where you start to really love and enjoy your body. I hope you got something out of this. If you ever want to talk about timelines and what phasing looks like for you, because everyone's phasing is different, whether you start with a deficit, end with a deficit, several, recomposition, is a build suitable for you or is it just maintenance? All these sorts of things are what we teach in the mentorship, but you're more than welcome to book a strategy call with me to have an outline of what would it look like for you specifically in phasing and dieting and all those sorts of things. I go through all of this and show you what your roadmap looks like for you. So if you want to book one of those, I have a strategy call link below. Please just click on the link and book a time with me. And if you got anything valuable out of this, I'd also love it if you'd share it on Instagram. So screenshot it, tag me at strengthtraining.nutritionist, and I will speak to you all next week.